Okay, everybody, we are going to go ahead and get started with today's event. So welcome to the 2021 Hour of Code webinar series. It is the start of our series, or our webinar is the start of our Hour of Code kickoff event. And so we're very thankful that you guys are spending the time with us today. So welcome to our annual Hour of Code webinar. The CodeMonkey team wants to personally thank every single one of you for taking your time to join us today. So please feel free to pop those questions in the chat box or in the Q&A, and we will answer them and save a few of those for the end for Q&A. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at CodeMonkeySTU. And today, during today's webinar, you can also tweet at us using the hashtag CMWebinar. We will do our best to answer any live tweets during the webinar, and my team is also here to answer any questions that you have. So please chat with us alongside in the chat box or ask any of those questions in the Q&A. The Q&A is always a bit easier for us to track instead of having your chats get lost in the box. And if we do not answer your questions immediately during today's webinar, we will make sure that we get to them during the Q&A or follow up with you directly after today's webinar. Following today's webinar, following the recording that we'll send out for today's webinar, a survey will pop up, and that will give you access to a professional development certificate for the time that you have spent with us today. So let's go ahead and get ready to write code, catch bananas, and save the world. So first, we always like to kick off by starting out by introducing who's joining us from the team. And so today you are joined by myself, and I am Lena Saleh. I'm the Professional Development Manager here at CodeMonkey. You can reach out to me at Lena@CodeMonkey on Twitter, or you can send me an email if you have any questions following up today's webinar. And I have been with CodeMonkey for now about almost 4 years. So I'm excited to do my 4th webinar this year with you all. 4th year of Hour of Code webinar. Also joining us is my team, Brett Eskelson. He is the VP of Sales. And so you can also reach out to him at brett@codemonkey.com if you have any questions. We also have Molly Schubach. She is our Director of Sales as well, and you can reach her here at her email, and they will be answering any questions alongside the chat box. And we do have another member of our CodeMonkey team joining us today, and that's Maya, and she will be also answering those questions in the chat box. I feel bad if I missed her slide today, so if you have any questions, those 3 will be joining me today and answering any questions. So feel free to ask those as they come up. Okay, so what exactly will we be even covering today in today's webinar? Well, we're going to talk about what is the Hour of Code, CodeMonkey's story, where to find us for the Hour of Code, covering those Hour of Code courses that you'll have access to, and the tips and tricks for setting up for an Hour of Code, requiring the technical requirements, teacher notes, and teacher lesson plans and resources, as well as leaving time to explore those courses and for Q&A. So what is the Hour of Code? I'm sure most of you at this point have heard about the Hour of Code. The Hour of Code is really just an introduction or giving students a taste to computer science. I also like to say it's also giving teachers a taste for computer science. It's really low risk, and it allows everyone to explore computer science in a fun way. And I think once you start to explore and bring computer science and really the Hour of Code into your classroom, you'll be hooked, and so will your students. So it really was designed to demystify code and show that anyone can really learn the basics of coding. It breaks down many stereotypes and opens many doors. There's also a lot of computational thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and different skill sets that will assist students throughout any content areas that they are exposed to. And just keep in mind that the Hour of Code is really just designed to be a taste of Hour of Code. A student isn't going to be walking away with a computer science degree at the end of the Hour of Code. It's really just to give them an unintimidating way to be introduced to computer science. So you will always have access to any of our code courses all year long. So if you don't do it this week during the Computer Science Education Week, you do still have access to all of those courses all year long. And this week or this next week for the Computer Science Education Week, also known as the Hour of Code, you'll see many different activities and different exposure opportunities for your students during that week. So feel free to take that risk. So what are others saying about the importance of coding? Well, we've seen people like Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs and the CEO of Microsoft talking about really the importance of coding. And we've seen computer science really transition itself since 2013, when it very first started with its very first event with just a few courses. And now there are hundreds, over 200 actually partners that are part of the Hour of Code event. What you'll see, and we'll have some really cool, we have a really great article coming out, blog post about computer science, but computer science really trickles into anything from doing data sets at a baseball game to programming road signs and really more complex things like we see in big tech, like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of those other things that we're being exposed to. And there'll also be lots of Twitter chats and things I forgot to mention throughout the week. So now we know exactly what the Hour of Code is and kind of the backstory for the Hour of Code. Let's talk a little bit about CodeMonkey. Obviously, we thank you so much for joining us. So in 2014, the year after the first Hour of Code event, CodeMonkey's CEO and founder, Jonathan Shore, launched CodeMonkey after working with kids and a lot of at-risk youth and just seeing how much they grasp the concepts versus how much better they grasp the coding concepts, which can be really complex, and the language can be very syntax heavy, curly brackets, semicolons, all of those things can really trick students up. But when his brother and himself turned the code into a game, the students were hooked. And like that, they started to see the students were grasping concepts and they were excited about what they were doing. So today, CodeMonkey is a leading fun and intuitive curriculum for students in grades K through 8, where they do learn to code in many different programming languages. First, we just started out with CoffeeScript. Now we have block-based and Python. So we have quite the variety of that as well. So that's how CodeMonkey got started. So what does make us a bit different is that CodeMonkey stems from an easy and game-like manner. We really try to scaffold it. It's more gamified. Students learn in a more linear manner. It's user-friendly and it's very intuitive for students. We try to scaffold it as much as possible along the way. And also what we really do really well is putting teachers in the driver's seat. We have many tools and resources to make you feel successful as well, because as teachers, that's sometimes the biggest inhibiting factor, is that most of us teaching the younger grade levels just don't have the background knowledge of being a computer science teacher. I myself taught in the classroom as well. And when I first started teaching computer science back in actually 2013, the first Hour of Code, I just really didn't have the tools in my back pocket. But when I started using the resources provided by Hour of Code, I really started to grasp computer science as well. And then I could have more robust conversations and really take that ownership for teaching code as well. But we really do try to give you all of those tools so it's not intimidating for you to teach it with your students and to utilize it. And it's also extremely easy to roll out, being that it's completely web-based. So let's talk about, where can you even find the Hour of Code? How can you get there? What do you do? Well, Hour of Code, you can still go to code.org, but now it is hourofcode.com. And make sure I am sharing my screen here. All right, great. So it is hourofcode.com now. So it's all just one word, or you can still go to code.org and there will be the Hour of Code listed there. They just branch it off into a new webpage with the more games, and just to kind of help with keeping everything together. So how you would find CodeMonkey is I'm here on the hourofcode.com page, which they'll throw in the chat box here for you in just a few minutes. And when you click on try it is when you'll actually get to, how you'll actually get to the courses themselves. You'll see there's all different grade levels: pre-reader, grade 2 through 5, 6 through 8, 9, you have beginner and comfortable. And this year we are very, very excited. CodeMonkey, the new block jumper course, is actually located right here on the front page. So that's exciting for us. But you can actually sort by, you can do by recommended, or you can sort by whoever created the course. So you'll see there's many different coding opportunities and platforms that you're able to utilize. But if you go down here, you can find CodeMonkey here. It's listed as CodeMonkey Studios. And you're able to see all of the courses that are available here. You can search for beginner or you can search for comfortable. Comfortable just means that the students have had a bit of exposure to using the courses, which will dive in a bit deeper to coding itself. And so these will just present a bit more challenge for the students. So beginner is always a good place to start if you're not really sure. You can also sort by which ones work best on which device. So if I do iPad, you'll see it limited a few of the courses that we have available. Those more text-based work better on something like a Chromebook or something more web-based. And so that will be located there for you as well. Now, how do you also get to it from CodeMonkey itself? Well, you can also go to the CodeMonkey webpage, and if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see down here in the footer, there is, down here in the footer is the Hour of Code page under curriculum. Or there is also a link that my team will throw in the box here, and that's just codemonkey.com/hour of code, which you can see right here. So we will go back here to the page. And when we're here, you'll see it's just a taste of coding, which is the Hour of Code. And here we have all of the courses located here for you as well. When you click on them, these ones do not require you to have a login. You can play these all year long. Just keep in mind that doesn't keep the progress as it would if you were logged in with a teacher trial or an account. Here you'll find that they are located, here you'll find all of the courses here. You'll also see there by grade level pre-KK, what language they are in. So we have our block-based courses here, and then the specific grade levels that they're specific to. Code.org will sort it based on the beginner and the comfortable, and here you're able to see it based on grade level. And so it'll give you a little bit of context about what each one of the games is about. And when I click on any specific one of the Hour of Code courses that we offer here, you can start playing right here. You can also see basically how many levels there are, what concepts the students will be covering. So that's always sometimes really nice to know. And then the block-based sequences. So we'll get into more of this here in just a few minutes, but I just wanted you to know that's there. If you do want to have access to some of the features that CodeMonkey offers, you can sign up for a free teacher trial. It does give you access for 100 students. So you can have the opportunity to kind of check out those Hour of Code courses and track them there in the platform itself. Now, we know how to get to the courses. We've done that. Now, what else is next? Well, we just covered the Hour of Code courses from our block-based to our text-based, and you'll be able to see those on the CodeMonkey page or code.org's page as well. So be sure to check those out. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the sequencing. So on CodeMonkeys, or on the Hour of Code, it sorts it into beginner and it sorts it into comfortable, but we do actually have a scope. And this is the same. We have Hour of Code courses of all of our courses. So CodeMonkey Junior, this is a really good place and an unintimidating way to start with all of your students. I even recommend it for the older students, middle school, just so they can kind of get that taste and window in an unintimidating way. This CodeMonkey Junior is completely block-based. There is no text. It is really about computational thinking. You're moving a monkey forward and backwards and jumping, and it's a really good place to start. Then we have our Beaver Achiever, and so you work through different concepts, and that is also block-based. And then we have Coding Adventure. That's text-based. That's a CoffeeScript, or that is CoffeeScript, and CoffeeScript is short for JavaScript, Coffee Java. It just means it doesn't have any syntax, meaning there's no curly brackets, there's no semicolons, there's not some weird syntaxing that's there. It's so really clean, and it's really going to build the foundational skills for students. And then there's Dodo Does Math. So in the Dodo Does Math Hour of Code course, they work through multiplication, angles where they're picking up a protractor and measuring, and then also working through, so distances, multiplication, and the angle measurement will all be combined in that Hour of Code course. We also have our game builder course that will work the students through our shorter version of our platformer course, a Super Mario style, very scaffolded. They'll work step by step to be able to build their own game by the time they get to the end. And we also have a block-based course of this as well. So just depending on where your students are. And then we do have Banana Tails. Banana Tails is Python. So they work through a baby monkey, finding his twin baby brother, working through different obstacles through those coding concepts. And then we do have a coding chatbot where they are building a chatbot that is full Python as well. And then what's not listed on here is Moonlander. That's one of the more challenging courses of the Hour of Code courses. It is physics. And so they're working on thrust and acceleration. They have to get a Moonlander onto the pad. And then the other one is Space Monkey. So there's also that one too. So let's go ahead and let's dive into the courses and kind of explore what those are and what there is there. Don't forget, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and pop those right into that chat box or into the Q&A. So to get to the Hour of Code courses, if you're not logged in, you can go ahead and you can just click Start Playing. So in this CodeMonkey Junior here, something I want to note is you will go back out to this story map here, and I'm actually logged in. So let me do a new screen share here. Just one second for my other account so you can see what that looks like. If you're logged in and your students have an account, then they will, their progress will be saved. However, if not, it will look like this. So when you go to the story map, you'll see everything is locked until I've been there. So I can't do 1, I can't do 5 before I've done 1. I have to do everything in between. This is something to keep in mind for any Hour of Code course that you do decide to take. Just keep in mind it won't keep students' progress. So if something crashes, like low bandwidth, Hour of Code can be a very busy time in the computer science world and for all of those curriculum providers. And so just keep in mind that if the students do log out or there's computer crashes or something happens, that they will in fact have to start over. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind for that preparation timeframe as well. So when we click on the exercise here, this is really great because you can move it and drag it. There are fun sounds. I just have the sounds turned off right now, but feel free to turn those on at any time. And then you can see I can drag or I can click to be able to get the monkey to his treasure box. And so they work through different components here, sequencing, and then they get into loops. And that's the end of the Hour of Code course for that one. So we also have our Beaver Achiever, and I won't be going into all of the courses in their entirety today, but I do want you to see. Here you'll see that we go over sequencing, loops, and some logic here, and it's ideal for 6 to 7-year-olds, so really for 1st or 2nd grade. I would recommend that if you're working with kindergarten, that it will be best to start with CodeMonkey Junior first. And then it does tell you how many levels there are, so there'll be 12 levels here. So you start playing exactly the same concept. Here you'll see the story map as well, and the story map has 12 challenges for which the students will be working on. And here the goal is to fill this hole with logs so that the beaver is able to go swimming. This little parrot down here who's snoozing away, this is a new feature that we just recently added. When you click on him, he will actually have the sound turned off on your end, but he will actually read the blocks for students. So when he's off, he's snoozing. When he's on, his eyes are awake, and he's so cute. So we're just going to click and drag, and we'll see that if there isn't anything connected, that means that the students don't have any code working. They will need to snap those blocks together in order to get it to run, and then they'll be able to move on to the next challenge. And it will increase with intensity as it goes along. As far as teacher resources go, something I'll mention, which we'll dive a bit deeper here in just a second, is there are notes here for you. So you will be able to access the notes here. You're able to see what text specs are available. So do you need to download anything? Everything that we do have is web-based. CodeMonkey Junior does have an app, but I would suggest going web-based with that one as well, even though it is available on an iPad. It does tell you a little bit of prep, so making sure you test those coding programs just to make sure everything is working for you. If not, reach out to your tech or IT directors. And then the certificates. So we do have certificates that you can print. You can do the Hour of Code ones, or we do have exclusive CodeMonkey ones. And something that I really like to note about Hour of Code when we get more into the prep thing is this is a really good place to involve parents. And then you can also see the specific standards that are associated with each one of these Hour of Code courses. So we went into the Beaver Achiever, and then this Space Adventure, or we like to call him Space Monkey over here at CodeMonkey. You can click on Space Monkey, and this is also CoffeeScript as well. And so this time they will have to write out the text. These buttons down here do type out for the students as well. And as well as any of the objects that you hover over that has white text. This is our Space Monkey. This is Space Gordo. And so Space Gordo is a teacher assistant. And he pops up with those tips and directions for the students. Same concept with the story map. It's locked until they proceed on to the next one. So if I just run this as is, you'll see that moving up got us there, and then they're yielded with a star solution. If you have a teacher trial, this will report back to you on the progress side. But Gordo does do some tips and tricks and that kind of a thing as well. There is sound and narration for this one as well. I just have this turned off. So if you're interested in that, you get stuck at any time, just let us know. So this one here, we can see we're going to need to move forward, and the students will need to move backwards. So just a little bit more thinking as it progresses. And this one is in CoffeeScript as well. And then the first course that we ever had in CodeMonkey is Coding Adventure. This one is that same concept of CoffeeScript. And here we have Gordo, and you actually can use this ruler to measure the distances. You click on the top of the monkey's head and you click to the banana, and then you'll run it in the same way. So it is that similar language that is in our Space Adventure is in Coding Adventure. Same concept with the map here. Something that you do have access to, even with the Hour of Code courses that we recently added, is these teacher tutorials. So the students will have access to teacher tutorials. If they get stuck, this teacher walks them through specific concepts that they're exposed to. This can help with that additional scaffolding for students. Okay. So let's check out one of our new favorite courses, and our CEO will actually be leading a coding class for students next week. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure that you check that out. We'll send you a link to that at the end here. So you can click on Start Playing. This one has 10 challenges. This one also is narrated as well if you click right here. And the goal here is we have the different sprites, and we want to create and have the monkey reach the star. So if we click run, nothing happens. There's no event. I'm not pushing anything. The code doesn't automatically run like in other courses. So it does tell us that we need to do something. And what do we need to do? In this case, we need to step. And how much am I going to step? When it runs, it's going to step 1 pixel essentially every single time. So he moves, we've seen that. However, moving on run, sorry, not every single time. He'll only move that one specific spot. So in this case, it tells us that we need to move it. We need to change it to 300. And then we're going to check if we did that correctly. And then now we're going to click on run and see if it works. So now he did move the exact distance here. This one does show you the coordinates. On the other ones, they're built in behind the scenes and you're not able to see them, but here you are able to see the exact coordinates. So we can actually see how far does he need to step by doing a little bit of math. So just some different integrations that are happening inside of the course itself. And then you'll see, I'll give you an example of our Python course. So we'll go ahead and we will go into Banana Tails. And so when we go to Banana Tails, that same concept of the story map as well. There's always a trailer at the beginning. Basically, these two twins get split up. And then there's some different specific hints that are built in right here. So you're able to see those as well. And so the goal here is that we need to get this car down to the monkey so he can be fed because he is a hungry bear. So it tells us there's no need to add or change anything. So this car can get to the monkey because there's no holes right now. And this one does show the coordinate grid, so you can see that. And when I click on run, he gets to the monkey. The first one is just an intro. And then when we get to our second challenge here, it gives us the star solution, which if you had a teacher trial or you have an existing account, you're able to see this on your side. And now we need to adjust the height. So we can see the giraffe here. We can click on the level setup. I can see the exact coordinates of where the giraffe is. There's no ruler to add or subtract. The students are having to do a bit more math here to figure out how far the actual distance is for him. So we can run it as is, debug the challenge, and we see that that actually worked out perfectly. And so this is going to get there for him. You'll see in the first challenge, this wasn't here, but now it is. There are built-in reference cards. These reference cards will open as the students are exposed to more concepts. So if they forgot what a concept is, this will help them give them some different tips to get there in addition to the ones that are here in the hints. Okay, and we will do one last one, and that's the Moonlander. And Moonlander is one of my favorites, but like I said, the one I find it to be the most challenging. I find it tricky to get that Moonlander to land right on the launching pad. Here, the concepts that we're going to be covering here, it says that they'll be using physics concepts. This was actually designed for an international cybersecurity NASA competition in Israel. So that's how this course was actually designed. So just a fun fact there. Here you'll see this looks like the block jumper interface. It's the same sort of concept there. Here we have the coordinate grid, just like we had on the other one. And then we have some specific concepts here. So this one tells us that we need to create our own game and we need to get the spaceship to land safely on the moon. I'm the worst at getting it to land on the moon, but I know kids are way better at playing those types of things than myself. It tells us that we need to use thrust. So this is automatically talking about thrust within the on key. So what I have here is a sprite, and this is my spaceship as the sprite, and I have a code. You'll see I have two sprites here. I have a star and a spaceship, and I'm going to program inside the spaceship because that's what it tells us to do. And it tells us that we do need to use thrust. So you can either type it out or the students can come down here and find the buttons. And what do we actually need to do? Well, when I push a key, this says any key, something will happen and we're going to want it to thrust. That means it's going to move up. We're gonna thrust it. So when I click that, then you'll see when I push any key, so I'm pushing one key on the key. If I don't do anything, nothing happens. If I push a key on the keyboard, then it actually thrusts up to where it needs to go. This one also has those same reference cards built in here. So if the students aren't sure about anything that's happening here, this is a really good point for them, especially if you're not creating a teacher trial and you don't have the answers right at your fingertips, which we do provide in the teacher trial on the progress page and in the teacher resources. This is a good way for you to see that and know that as well. Okay, so we have explored most of the Hour of Code courses. Just keep in mind, it's always good to kind of play them. There was a question here, is the reason why I'm getting access denied for the Hour of Code courses. If you have an expired trial and you're not able to log in, and when you log in, you're not able to access them, it kind of blocks that, kind of roadblocks you there. So you will just need to make sure that you're signed out so you have access to those. So it's just good to play with those beforehand. I've had many of our code events where I thought, oh yeah, I got this in the bag. And then I tried to test things and they didn't work. Not because the program or the curriculum provider didn't have it, but my district didn't have the right settings in place for that. Okay. Now let's get into more of the preparation for Hour of Code. So some things to kind of prepare for the Hour of Code. I find Hour to Code, we just had a Twitter chat yesterday, so feel free to check that out as well. But I find Hour of Code the best place to invite industry or invite partners, or really to create a really great buy-in. You can invite, everyone can run different programs. I mean, each one can run different activities, like unplugged activities where you're doing movement. There's all kinds of opportunity to bring other stakeholders to the table. I personally loved having parents come in and run activities. They always want to help. So this is a really great place. I know that with the pandemic, it's a bit tricky, but you can run Hour of Code events online or in person. So just kind of keep that in mind there. Laredo ISD, I know some of them are on here. They have a coding competition at the end of their, they have a digital learning day, and they actually live stream a coding event. So there are different opportunities of which that you can bring those different stakeholders and show them what you're doing and showcase them. It's a really great place to create buy-in and also just show how fun computer science can be. So some things that we talked about earlier was preparing certificates. You can also have a certificate and use a program like Autocrat or something like that, where you have a form. And then in that form, you can have the students put their names in, and then it will just auto create a certificate for them as well, or have those pre-printed. That's also a good place to have those parents come in and help with those pieces in beforehand. And testing it out before using it, it's a really good place. It's a really good rule of thumb to always test out the tech before you've used it. You know that when you think you have everything ready to go, something always goes wrong. So it's good to know, especially during the Hour of Code week, is one of the busiest weeks for every curriculum provider. There are thousands worldwide using the platforms and checking everything out. So just really testing them out beforehand, especially if you're using logins. Students really struggle, and we want them to spend the most time coding and to not be tied down by having to log something in and not getting the opportunity to have that taste of coding. Also, there's some really great unplugged activities that we have here. So CodeMonkey, we have all of our unplugged, we have a blog post here about unplugged activities that you can check out and utilize those. So an unplugged activity means you're not doing anything online. That means that it's offline. So there's some really good things like, I used to buy shower curtains from the store that had like those grid patterns and set something on it, a rock, or it could be, I don't know, whatever, a pen, doesn't matter. And having the students use cards to walk me through, having them plan them out with arrows, like exactly what CodeMonkey Junior is doing, but on the floor, and having them use those tiles to navigate to get there, and then having them write the code or script it, or having another student come in and actually run through the code that they wrote. So it's a good way to kind of also create that conversation about it and problem solving and strategizing different ways. CS Unplugged is also a really good one. They just redid their website, which was much needed and long overdue. There's lots of unplugged activities there. Code.org always has a ton that I recommend checking out. Binary bracelets is a good one to have like your art teacher do, working through, pattern recognition and different things like that. And then another one, another unsung hero for unplugged activities is barefoot computing. They have some really great ones that they did. Even from the pandemic, they have an unplugged coding activity with washing your hands and what an algorithm is like for washing your hands. So some just different ways to bring other people to the table. So typically when doing an Hour of Code event in the past, or even with other teachers that I've worked with, they set up stations. And so one station might be with the PE teacher, where they're having to maybe hop over something and then having to code that out using a whiteboard or markers, or having another student script it for them. And then the other student going back and doing their exact directions. Then having a station where they're plugged in and they're doing a certain activities. And maybe you're pair sharing. So maybe you invite a kindergarten group to come up with a third grade, and they're working through those together. You'd be very shocked that the kindergartner will actually probably get further than the third grader, just because they have low inhibitions and they're ready to take risks. And then having those different, stations set up, you can have it all around the school. You can have your whole school doing an Hour of Code, just different opportunities there. And during the Hour of Code week, if you want, there's always a lot of people who are willing to come in and do guest appearances, virtually guest appearances. So it's a good place to invite people in. I know I'm doing a couple of events supporting some different schools. So feel free to reach out to your curriculum providers, or really try to utilize those resources around you. Everyone is using computers, so they can come speak to your students to also create a bit of buy-in as well. And then just really making sure that you have those unplugged, certificates. Students love certificates, parents love certificates. So it's really good to have those things prepped beforehand and tested. I can't say that enough. Test beforehand, just to make sure everything goes. Have that happen where nothing works. And so we just spend the time just problem solving and trying to figure that out. So we want them to have the best first experience coding as possible. So I know that was pretty fast and furious, but I also want to leave some time for questions for you. So today we did cover what the Hour of Code is, when it first started, CodeMonkey's story itself, where to find us. So you can find us on the Hour of Code website by going here to Hour of Code, and it is learn here. And when you click on, so we go back to Hour of Code itself, you click on try it, and then you're able to locate those. The block jumper course, like I mentioned, is right here. And then you can sort by the curriculum provider right here. And then for finding CodeMonkey itself, you would go to CodeMonkey.com or go to that CodeMonkey Hour of Code link that we shared with you. And when you click on Hour of Code, then you're able to see all of those activities that we have there for you to just introduce students to coding. Also, just making sure some tips and tricks, try to invite as many stakeholders in if you can. I know things are still a bit tricky out there, but trying to invite some people in to help you run those Hour of Code events. I know some of the teachers during the Twitter chat that we had yesterday were discussing how they also have former students come down and work with their students and kind of help lead the Hour of Code, kind of thinking of like a field day for Hour of Code. Making sure you test those technical requirements. You were able to see the teacher notes and what was there on the teacher notes. So we can actually go back here to the teacher notes themselves. When you go to the Hour of Code, you'll have the access the notes. If you have a teacher trial, you'll have full lesson plans, but here you'll just have the notes. And then this will just tell you what concepts they're covering and just kind of to help you host that Hour of Code event. And then it will tell you the specific programming languages and those types of things right there for you. And so now we're gonna leave some time for Q&A for each one of you to ask any questions or for our panelists to ask any questions. And then we're gonna go over a few things that are up and coming. This is a good question. Could you show us again how to access the CodeMonkey certificates, not Hour of Code? Absolutely. So how you would access the certificates is you would go to our website here. And here, when we are in the teacher notes or the teacher notes for every single course, when you click on certificates, this one brings you to the Hour of Code, but how you actually access the CodeMonkey ones if you don't have a subscription is in our press pack, which I was going to share with you in just a few minutes. But here it says to download the images. It's really just a Google Drive folder. Here you will see all of the certificates. And so you'll see the certificate for hours. I'll also make sure that this is updated here to include the other certificates that we offer too. But they should all be here listed for you. It looks like we need to add a couple more there. And then we do have a specific Hour of Code folder for you all. So we have specific animated images that we have here, as well as you can see I'm using a Zoom background here. We have a couple of Zoom backgrounds for you. And as we create more images, we'll be adding those to that as well. So we encourage you to use those during the Hour of Code as well. Okay, I'm just looking to see here. Okay, so this is a great question. Could I ask about high school? I have some students with a CS background, some not. Many of the Hour programs I've seen start from 0. Is there a quick way to indicate prerequisite knowledge of some of the more advanced levels? That way I can curate an Hour of Code for many levels. So that's it's a bit tricky in that way. I would say that we have many high schools using our coding adventure and our Banana Tails courses. I would say that the first 30 challenges, which is what you get in the Hour of Code, would be a really good prerequisite for you to see where the students are. And if you feel like they're flying through the coding adventure course, so I'll just go back here to pull up our CodeMonkey. So you'll see CodeMonkey Studios. So here, what I would do is I would start them with the coding adventure for prerequisite, and that's for any high school. I've worked at conferences. I've seen many high school students use this as well. Coding adventure is a good just starting point. It goes through sequencing and it goes through loops, and it also goes through object-oriented programming. So there's some different concepts that are there, which would be a really good quick guide. If they go through it super, super fast, then I would definitely say go towards this Python. Go to this Banana Tails. It says beginner, but it goes really advanced pretty quickly. So I would say that would be your next one. So I would say do coding adventure first, and then I would do the Banana Tails. And then I would shoot for them to do, if they're high schoolers, they could do the trivia chatbot. It's pretty challenging for students that may have different backgrounds or things like that. So that would be the best way. This is the first time viewing the program. What is the curriculum you mentioned? What grades and basic costs and subscriptions, and how do you get one? So there's lots of questions there. So the curriculum that I mentioned is we do have a K-8 scope and sequence. So I'll just go here so you all can see it. So here I mentioned with a subscription to CodeMonkey, you do get access to all the curriculum we offer. So it does move from the K-8 span. Like I mentioned, we do have high schools, some of them using this Banana Tails and coding chatbot. So that's definitely an opportunity there as well. It can kind of be a variable range based on students' ability level and things like that. So that's a great question. As far as pricing and the basic costs and things like that, we will be running our half yearly pilot. So if you have a question, we'll actually link here in the chat box a request for more information. So Molly, thank you so much, has been throwing in links. She's so fast. She put in here for a teacher trial, so you can check out the teacher trial, or you can request more information. And so we'll go ahead and throw that there in the chat box for you as well. Okay, so you guys have some really great questions and I really appreciate it. So I'm just going to talk about some things that are actually coming up for next week for the Hour of Code. We actually have 3 webinars happening next week. On Monday, we have our CodeMonkey Women in STEM. Actually, at CodeMonkey, we are an equal ratio of women to men. And so we will be having the women in STEM. So we actually have more women developers than we do have men. So they will be talking about how their different pathways to STEM, hardships that they face as being a woman in STEM. And so we're having that panel conversation there. And that will be Monday at 11 a.m. Everything is at 11 a.m. Eastern this year, same time, all week long. On Tuesday, we will be having Jonathan, who I mentioned in the very, very beginning. So these two are the founders of CodeMonkey. We have Jonathan and Ido. Jonathan will be hosting an interactive online class for students, and he will be doing coding adventure. And Ido on Wednesday will be leading a class with students on block jumper and going over different components of that. And each one of them have worked with students before becoming the founders of CodeMonkey, and then also have taught different coding classes and things like that. So it's going to be really, really fun for those students. So we encourage you to register. Last year, we had so many attendees that I would definitely encourage you to register beforehand. So I'm actually going to throw in a link for each of you, or a link here for, let me just make sure this is the correct link here. Okay, so I'm going to throw in our link here. This is going to show you all of the, right at the top there. Let me just copy this and show you. So the link that I just shared with you will have access to you'll see here, the Hour of Code Tips and Tricks webinar. That's the webinar we're doing right now. The live coding class with our founders, Coding Adventure and Block Jumper. And then you're able to see the chats here. The Women in STEM is not quite up here quite yet, so we'll need to make sure that we get that there for you. You can also see all of the Hour of Code courses there. Anything that you need is right here in this link that we've provided for you in the chat box there. We also have a competition that I'm actually going to we actually are going to have a competition that we're doing next week for students. And so in CodeMonkey itself, we have these preloaded avatars that have been created. So when I click here, we have all these avatars that have been associated. And so we're actually going to be having a competition for students to create an avatar, and a few of the students' avatars will be selected and we will CodeMonkeyify them, we'll monkify them, and the avatars will actually be available for students to choose. So we're really excited about that one. And so be on the lookout tomorrow for the recording of this webinar, and then the opportunity to register for all of the webinars for next week. Molly, Brett, Maya, have I missed any questions coming through there?
No, you're great.
Okay. Well, great. If you do have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out to us at info@codemonkey.com, and be sure to register for next week's webinars. We're really excited about them. They were a big hit last year, and I think your students will really enjoy it. Those of you that have joined us first time or not your first time, we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We know that you are, listen, life has not slowed down for any of you all since the pandemic and even before the pandemic, and we know your plates are heavy. So we really appreciate you spending the time with us today. So with that being said, be on the lookout for a follow-up email. And we just want to thank you again for joining us so much. And remember to write code, catch bananas, and save the world. And we'll see everybody next time and hopefully next week. Bye-bye, everybody.